Yeah, well, we do collaborate a lot, as a team, with all.
Hello and welcome to this episode of The Diligent Leader. I'm Holly Basta here with my co-host Alex Fakeri.
Hi there. Thanks for joining in and to another episode of The Diligent Leader. We are quite excited today. Holly and I, as you know, we've performed many interviews, but we're excited because we have two special guests, one coming in remotely, which is our very own Michael Graham. Michael, thanks for joining in today.
Good morning.
Great. And then most importantly, I don't say most important, but to me, very important, an old friend and somebody who I've had the pleasure of working with over several years now. I want to introduce Danielle Fields from BWS.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hey there.
welcome.
Hi,
Thanks
thank
for joining
you.
us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us
Yes, good to
on
see
The
you
Diligent
too.
Leader. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it's
I'm
great.
excited.
So first question, BWS. Tell us exactly what the full name of the company is and what you do.
Yes. So BWS stands for Biomedical Waste Services. So we are a medical waste, regulated waste company. We transport and dispose of regulated waste. So primarily medical waste and biohazardous waste, which sounds creepy, but it's not that bad. But also hazardous waste too. So we also have a company, our sister company, BWS, that is Broadview Waste Solutions. So we're under one brand, but we service all regulated waste. So hazardous waste on one side, biomedical on the other side. And I am the marketing director in business development.
So I have to ask, probably when you started your career, you probably never saw yourself in this particular role with this company. How did that happen?
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. So I'll take it back a little bit. So I went right into the workforce right out of high school. And I started working for a flooring manufacturer. They're a global manufacturer. So, and I actually stayed in the flooring industry for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was my original, that was my first career. And I really did. I expected, as long as I was in it, that was going to be it. But I found myself after 20 years starting over. So, but I will say in the flooring industry, my job evolved from customer service, like in a call center, to marketing, marketing management and director, so I learned a lot, and thankfully, have been able to really take the marketing background and apply it, to anywhere, So I ended up here at BWS, as I was looking for something, right? I said, it's probably time to find something different. And so at first I was really looking at what are my passions, right? Definitely wasn't biohazardous waste. But it was just before COVID, so couldn't have anticipated anything like that happening. Right. But so I just kind of started looking at, all right, what am I really passionate about? I'm really into sports, really into fitness. What can I do? So I actually went and got my personal training certificate, so I am a certified personal trainer, which no one really knows. And I really just use it for myself now. Yeah. But that doesn't pay the bills, really. I found that out pretty quickly when I started interviewing for places, know.
Right.
So again, I just kept looking, and then I came across an opportunity at Biomedical Waste Services, but they were actually looking for like an executive assistant.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, I need something, so let me. And I was willing to start over, like really literally start my career over, get my foot in the door somewhere and work my way back up, So I interviewed with Trey, who is Ray's son, Ray's the owner who started the business. And, he's like, you're way overqualified for this position, but you have like all this great marketing experience, and that's something we've never done, So he took a chance. They took a chance, and so it's kind of evolved from there. One of my first projects, of course, was the website, and that's how we met.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so that's where we are today.
So how long ago was that part actually take place? I mean, first off, I can't believe you've been in the industry or in another industry 20 years. You look fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So how long have you been now with B-Waste?
Yeah. So just hit
bwaste.com, by the way, is the URL.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just hit 5 years. So
5
it
years.
was
Okay, great.
literally just before COVID. So I joined in October of 2019. And then within, 6-9 months, we were all like, everything changed.
Yeah.
So, and it continues to change, which is great.
Yeah. No, that's exciting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so is there any, thing that you can share with us about the evolution of the marketing campaign and how you're doing things in engagement during the COVID pandemic? Because it seems like that would be a complete regroup of everything you're doing, and they're trying to market. And now you've got people that are scared to death. How do you explain what you do and so important of a service at that time?
Yeah. So, it definitely it was a challenging time, but for us it catapulted our the need for us in our business. So while we had many customers unfortunately closing their doors, like dentists, if you'll recall, I mean, everyone had to they had to stop servicing people. So while we were getting it felt like calls all day long, like, I need to put my service on hold. I need to put my service on hold. Then we, our clients senior living and long-term care, where you were seeing everything explode, So
as an evolution.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, we need you coming every day, So, and I would say, even here we are, 5 years later, we still have a lot of customers that haven't quite gotten back to normal. Like they still have some, operational, their hours, they still vary and stuff, but, businesses change too. We besides healthcare, we're in a lot of other industries. So everyone has kind of had to evolve, with those changes, post-COVID. So number one was just, servicing our existing clients, right, and what their needs are, But then, you started to see some service challenges over the last 2 or 3 years, really, with our competitors. So that's where we made sure from a marketing perspective that we are there when they're searching online, looking for a referral, if they're in, any type of associations, things like that we're there, and our name is there, So, we really have been able to, and we still hear a lot of it because there's a lot of changes happening in the industry. Stericycle was bought by Waste Management. That was a huge deal. And that was more recent. So they're still kind of working through that. And, so some of our other competitors going through these acquisitions where that's, for us, 50 years in the business, we're not having those types of pains, and so we've, again, taken that opportunity to make sure our name is there when someone is going to search, for the service.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because I think, most businesses, they have, when you're talking about marketing and where this whole thing's not about marketing, it's about leadership. But I definitely want to hear your perspective as a leader when you think about your industry, because if you're a restaurant or any other business that's out there, marketing challenges are pretty straightforward. You know, it's frequency and consistency, and that's always generally the marketing formula. But when you deal with an industry that has a demand and a need, that's, you cannot challenge it. Like you have to be out there, and there's a medical, there's a legal, there's all these conditions, you have to be there. So I would assume that you probably have to really gauge what's best for the organization now, even more so than a normal business. It kind of has to be, evaluated a number. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of marketing, promoting, and leading a company in a direction that allows them to be successful with something as unique as a pandemic or the medical industry?
Yeah. So I would say number one, solving their problem, right? So if they're looking for us, they're either upset, or they're not getting their service or something going on, right? So being there as a solution, and solving their problem, that's number one, so being able to appeal that way as well. I mean, we've, tweaked, how we say things or how we promote certain things so that it is touching on those, everything they're feeling.
Yeah.
They're not picking up my, the phone when I call,
The pain points.
all the pain points, right?
Yeah, you're establishing your credibility though, as a service provider.
Yeah.
When you have that website, because I'm wondering, do all waste management services have a website that people can go to answer these kind of questions? Most likely not, because as you said, prior to the pandemic, they didn't need to market themselves like that.
Yeah.
They didn't need to have a consumer-facing, website or educational.
Right.
Because
Or
that's-
very just basic, right? Like you would go on, because even for us, like if you went on our website, years ago, it's just basic information, But yeah, really like, evolving and developing it into more of a resource and, one, to attract business, but then, a resource of information and, tools for our customers and, a lot of like the new business, if it's a company that's just starting and they're looking for the business, we want to attract them that way as well, right? Like, so they may not have a problem, but they're looking for the service and they're looking for the right fit,
So, and just again, from a consumer facing perspective here, I have to ask this because I'm sure this is something that a lot of people are wondering, and I'm hoping you can give us a little insight here. But I mean, how important is it for consumers and potential clients to understand how you do what you do? Because I'm thinking, with our close proximity to the Bay and things like that, people will have questions.
Oh,
How
for
do
sure.
you do, what do you do with this waste? Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about how providing that sort of information, again, it establishes your company as a thought leader, as a credible service provider. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we take a lot of pride in whoever answers the phone can answer all those questions, right? So we can help guide them through. And I mean, for the most part, if you're in healthcare or biotech or, you understand most of the regulations, right? You know what you need to be doing and how to do it, but there's some other factors sometimes that are very important to them too, like, making sure nothing goes to a landfill, right? And we don't do that. Or how the waste is processed. Is it incinerated? Or, is there some sort of green story behind it? Like as that becomes more important, so things like that, being able to, tell them our story and what's important, how we do it, which is different than there's only a handful of competitors in this area, right? We do some things similar and then some things we don't, right?
Yeah.
So our unique story explaining that, we're processing all the waste in-house, steam sterilized, so it's water. It's funny. So like Trey will always say it's like steaming a blue crab, right? Because it resonates with everyone. But it's waste. And then we partner with waste to energy facilities so that once it's sterilized, it really just becomes trash. And we're able to explain this to customers too, and they really value that. But it becomes trash, and then it goes on to our waste to energy partner, and is turned into energy. So the medical waste, we're able to explain that, and then everything else we're doing, like with the paper shredding, everything, all that's recycled. Everything we do, nothing is going to a landfill. So like we like to explain that's a unique story of ours. So we like to, make sure that comes through, with everything. And really the service element, I feel like that's huge. Because even if you think about just if you needed to call your cable company or something, some of the challenges of just getting someone on the phone, right? So we are really proud of that. number one, we're answering the phone because that seems to be a challenge, not just in our industry, but and then we're local. Right. So we're here. We're talking about some of the same cities, the streets, we're living in the same area. We're servicing that area. We're patronizing the same communities. We can share that story, So, we really do really take that legacy that, we're celebrating 50 years this year, started here. We, really capitalize on that legacy and that local business, family owned, but, as we've grown, we're a lot bigger, but still can, make you feel as if we're a small company, right? And providing that personal service.
Well, I was talking to Michael about this the other day, and it kind of, you're bringing it back to the foreground here. And, as I reflect on your experience with, the call centers and everything that you've been doing, and you mentioned your competitors. You mentioned, the how you're trying to tap into the emotional connection, the regional flavor. There had to be a decision made somewhere, right? You had to say, okay, I'm going to listen to the customer. We're going to approach it a certain way. How did you guys as an organization come to that decision? And I mean, because in your industry, not everybody's doing what you're doing, right? So that required some innovative thought process. And was that Trey? And how's it going, Trey? Or was that you? Was it a collective? I mean, how did you come to that point where you said, okay, it's time to do something different? How did that manifest for you guys?
Yeah, well, we do collaborate a lot, as a team, with all the departments, really. So it's not just me coming up with the ideas. Or
you can take credit. Nobody's here. It's okay.
But, we do. I mean, if someone comes to me with an idea, and says, hey, have we tried this? Or, it really, we're able to come up with a lot of unique ideas. But, I think just number one, us servicing a specific area, certainly helps, right? So we can have that connection, but, as things have happened over the years here, that's really where I think, we have taken that opportunity. I wouldn't say there was a switch, right? But it was just for instance, we all heard about medical waste washing up on the shores last year, right? So that's important to us, right? As Marylanders, our bay, our beaches, that's something we can all relate to, right? So us even just saying that or posting something on social media that you'll never find we don't know where that came from, but that's important to Marylanders, right? Or anybody along the coast. So it's just making sure we're, taking those opportunities, to make that connection, right? So when something does come up or when we know that a local competitor was recently, bought out and we know, or they were the ones that were in the news a year ago,
Sure.
We may not necessarily and not in a good way, but we won't necessarily call them out. But what we will call out is why you're not going to hear about us. Right. We're not doing those things, but we say, but we're, I think,
a little bit of newsjacking, right?
Yeah, okay, exactly. But in a very classy way.
So, I mean, I've worked at organizations where there's been a competitor that I've had a good working relationship with, and we're able to have constructive conversations when something like that happens. And we've been able to sort of lean on each other and give each other guidance, which I have valued that connection. I can't say who, but value that connection so much because there's been a number of times where they've called me and said, hey, did you see this? And sometimes I had, sometimes I hadn't. And then you can sort of springboard ideas off of each other. If you have that good relationship, even though it is a competitor, we can still find ways to work together.
Absolutely.
But I just was wondering if you've ever had that experience.
Oh, for sure. Because we all do work together, in some sort of way. So we definitely communicate. Most of us are all involved or a part of similar associations or the same association. So we all have a seat at the table with certain with certain things that we should be collaborating on. So whether we're doing business together, or at least coming together to collaborate and just make sure we're all, just doing the right thing for the industry.
Sure.
There are certainly times, we talk to companies just like ours that are like across the country, because regulations are different across the country too, so when something happens, in different parts, or hey, like, what are you guys doing there? How are you guys dealing with this? Certainly we appreciate and value those relationships for sure, even though, yes, some of them are competitors.
Well, what I'm curious about when you have those competitors, you're in this industry now, that has, somewhat of collaboration and just natural, I guess, synergy based upon the tasks and services at hand. You have to still stand out, right? And you do, like you said, whether you're news hijacking or you're whatever your approach is. I guess from your point, when when Danielle comes in and says, "Okay, we're going to come up with a solution," like where are you? What channels are you leveraging? Like where do you find your customers? What channel outlet do they listen to the most? And how do you make the determination to where to make that investment? Like how do you come up with that?
Yeah. Well, Google, number one. We all know, we all do it, right? As consumers or whatever, if we're looking for a service or we're looking for, reviews, so that's number one, is we have to be there when they're looking, so there's a lot of time and investment that certainly goes into that for sure. But also, first of all, I guess our existing, customer base being there when they need more, so like as we evolve the business, like and adding like the shredding services, those are all like low hanging fruit right there, right? Like, so just getting a bigger share of the wallet with, with our existing customer base. And then, they weren't really on social media, before my time. So like really growing that because, it's, are they going to social media to look for this type of business? Maybe not, but also making sure like that just continues to, feed the Google beast and,
there you go.
But still establish like our presence and our credibility. They can see behind the scenes, like, maybe they didn't come there to look for that service, but let's say they found us on Google or something, or heard us in some sort of association or, newsletter or something, and they check us out and they're like, oh, this is like a real company. And, look, they were out in the Baltimore community doing this, or, just having that out there to just, to support like our efforts to like, put our name out there, our branding out there.
What's been the most effective campaign that you've run so far, and how do you think it differentiated you from your competitors?
Yeah, great question.
Let's see. Let me think. What have we done? So a lot of community events that most of our competitors are not out there doing that. Right. So and there's a variety of things that, events, I should say. So whether they're like providing healthcare to the community, like free healthcare to the community.
Okay.
We did, one of those in the fall on the Eastern Shore in the Salisbury community. Yeah. So supporting that. So being out there, they have to get rid of the waste somehow. Right. So it's, but still being out there, we were offering our shredding services for free, to the community. We've done several events in Baltimore City with an organization who's out there like bringing awareness to like mental health and safe community events, things like that. And a part of that is, disposing of your needles in a safe way, protecting your personal information and, just things like that. And protecting like, our waterways and stuff, like not throwing your medications
I like that though, because again, it's the consumer facing educational component that you're teaching people. And unfortunately, we all know that in Maryland, we have a problem with intravenous drug use. So I think that component of just educating people on that right there
Yeah.
is super
Yeah.
important and shows that you're invested in the community.
Absolutely. That's super important to us. Like we tout, that part that, that's really how the business even started, right? Is, like the safety of Ray's, employees who were just cleaning offices, right? Like, and just making sure
okay.
that the needles were being disposed of and handled
okay.
in
Yeah.
a certain way, because that was 50 years ago. Regulations were different, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So, so just making sure his people were safe, making sure the local trashmen were safe, needles weren't getting into trash, And I wanted to also mention too, like, to just kind of circle back on your original question with, our campaigns. I would say the other part of that would be our shredding services.
Yeah.
Since that was really something that has grown over, and we've really put a lot of effort into over the last few years. That's probably where we've seen the most growth,
Really?
right? When we're looking at the numbers. So number one, going after existing business,
Yeah.
but then also making the investments with our shred trucks, so that we can really go out to any business, not just healthcare.
There you go.
But yeah, so really broadening our customer reach. So we can get to the accountants, we can get to the attorneys and law firms, and
And they don't have to come to you. They don't have to lug all that weight and paper.
yeah,
to you.
yeah, exactly.
I remember.
Yep.
Once, back in the day when you had to take it to the facility.
Right. Yeah. So that also has, really changed, I shouldn't say changed, but has evolved our marketing approach as well, right? Because we want to appeal to more than just healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in. You had mentioned a number of events that you've been going to, and that's been differentiating you versus your competitors. I've personally have recognized that over the last couple of years because of the number of awards that I've been seeing BWS awarded just in the last 6 months. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. We're pretty proud and excited. We did. So yeah, last year we had Comptroller Learman. She did a site visit.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Sent a couple of letters just congratulating us, on just the amount of years in business and, our economic contributions to Maryland. And then we were also recently, I accepted the award on the company's behalf.
Tough job. Somebody's got to do it, right? Yeah, there you go.
A governor citation. So
Okay, very good.
that was pretty cool too. So again, just like just recognizing the legacy of the business,
Yeah.
and everything we've done for the county and the city. We got another citation recently too from the county executive.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're really really proud of that and excited. Especially when you do hear some things that have been in the news in the past, that because like medical waste and those types of things, they sound scary, right?
Yeah.
But to be recognized for everything that we are doing,
Yeah.
in the 50 years that
Sure.
we've been in business, it's pretty exciting, right? And we are getting involved in more. I would say, some different events and stuff, just more, right? Like
Yeah.
just to be out there and be a part of the community and different industries and building that.
Yeah, you mentioned your shredding business. And so just on that note, I mean, can you talk a little bit about how you sort of identified the need in the community to go out to these events and do these community shred?
And I have a
Because
follow-up question
that's,
to that. Yeah, that's good.
that is something that, up until maybe the last 10, I'll say 15 years hasn't been a big thing. But
Right.
can you talk about the development of that service and again, how you identified that need?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you definitely hear, in the news all the time that data leaks or data breaches
Sure.
or things
Okay,
like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, while a lot of that may be digital, there's still a lot of paper, even just personally, right? You may keep some of your, financial documents handy or your
Right.
business documents some stored away, So really, the foundation in healthcare and being in healthcare, there's patient records, right? All these doctors, dentists, hospitals, they all are storing this information and these records that have to be properly destroyed after
They
you know,
get
their
digitized.
retention. Yeah, exactly. And then they're past the retention time. It's time to get rid of them in a secure way. So that was easy. I feel like to just bring on that part of the business. But then going beyond that and supporting like community efforts. That's where we really we had gotten several calls even too. Sometimes I feel like that were someone asked or they're just someone in the community asked, hey, can I just drop those off to you? So between that and knowing there was a need out there anyway, and us having customers in community outreach types of roles, it like seemed like a natural fit, where we could partner with some of our customers, and organizations or associations that we're a part of. It was like, just a natural fit.
Yeah.
And then, and even now, I mean, we have more drop-offs, like someone can
That's
just drop
great.
off, and, a lot of times we'll do it like, it's super low cost or,
Sure.
minimal cost and to help the community. We're actually maybe going to try to put something together soon too, where it'll really just be BWS doing it versus like partnering with, an organization, but us maybe hosting something.
Well, I need to come because I've
Yeah.
got plenty of boxes of papers that need to get shredded.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to take a moment to kind of just call out, and what I've heard you say this whole time, and in general, people look at marketing, they look at promoting businesses and it's a very difficult thing. Sometimes they don't know the timing, they don't know what they're doing. But what I really love that I've heard you say over and over again, and if you haven't been paying attention, hit rewind, play again. But no, what really is interesting is that you're really building relationships with the community. And people don't work with people they don't trust. And so everything you've said has been consistent, right? Being out there, doing the outreach, hearing the need, listening to the pain points. Everything you've said is not only something more businesses need to do, but what I admire about what you've done and where you're working with your organization to bring everybody together is that this is going to be how we set ourselves apart, even above and way beyond what anybody in this industry is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, I wanted to dote on you for that because I think that was a great, it's a great approach. But it kind of leads me to my next and more, so from a statement to more of a question. So is that the strategy you're going to follow for the next 5 years? Like where do you go from here? Like it sounds like you got some good ammo and techniques, but is that the route to keep going? Or what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there will always be a need for what we do, right? So as we continue to grow, we want to keep that connection, and foundation and, so that we don't, because I think when you start to lose that connection, the service changes.
Yeah.
So you become a number or hard to get on the phone or, so I definitely, see that us just continuing to grow that, we have a lot of exciting things happening. I think that will, it's going to continue to grow the business. We're going to get bigger, but I think, we all, everyone a part of the organization, even, I would say at every level. I mean, we've got some of our drivers, which are a majority of our workforce, that have been with the company over 25 years.
Wow.
So they believe in what we're doing too. And, their customers know them by their first name. Like, they'll talk to them. They're not, so, I mean, just having that relationship and connection, I really do feel that we believe in that. We believe in that sets us apart, and we hear that from our customers too. Like, oh my God, you made this so easy. I'm so glad I could get you on the phone. Thank you so much for caring. I mean,
but that's just not a button you click. That's a culture you've developed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you guys must have demonstrated that, and they believe in it, and you're backing it. Otherwise, why are they going to continue doing it? So that's definitely an effort.
And that was well before me, right? I mean, I just came in this 5 years ago.
You're not picking up my signals. This is all you. No, I gotcha.
So I know we're getting a little close to the ending of our time here. I want to give Mike another chance to ask a question because I know he has an important question that he wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've been chomping at the bit, actually. And that is, in your experience, is there something that kind of a takeaway, if you could go back in time and tap yourself on the shoulder, what lessons have you learned that you would have shared with an earlier self of an earlier you that would have really maybe made your career easier or decisions easier? Something maybe you can share with the marketing industry as kind of like what
Yeah.
kind of pitfall could you kind of avoid?
What a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
one. All right.
I would say, you know, I guess I feel like I have a been open to change pretty much. I mean, I grew up in a military family, right? So we had to adjust, right, quickly.
Right.
So I feel like, as long as you can be, willing to learn and continue to keep learning, change is inevitable. You have to grow with those changes. Like we're seeing now that there's more things are going towards, a lot happening with AI, right? And I'm not afraid of that. I'm, using stuff now to support what I'm doing, but even just going from 20 years in one industry and then something completely different, I would say just the ability to, welcome that change and be willing to keep learning, learning something different. Don't be afraid of change.
Okay.
That's
And because
awesome.
I personally want to know, I want to ask this before we go. Are there any upcoming events that we should know about?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, or probably several times too, that we are celebrating 50 years this year. So we have a lot of, we have some really exciting things in the works and happening. We definitely we're in the process of coordinating and planning an event, hopefully at our facility. So more of like an open house and, where we can invite, customers and colleagues, and maybe even the community too, to come see what we're doing.
That's great.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. We do actually have a couple of community events that are coming up too in April. So I think that one's going to be in Pigtown. So we'll be out in the community. Yep, doing some work there with the needle take back, medication take back, and so we'll be there in April. But I would say, we are definitely focused on really celebrating our 50-year anniversary this year. So we've got some things in the works. So just got to follow social media.
There you go.
What's your
There you go.
website too for this?
Yes. So easy, bwaste.com, BWASTE.com.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank you, Danielle, for coming on the show and sharing all your experience with us. And I just want to say, for the record, I think you made a fantastic transition in your second
Thank
career.
you.
I think you're always meant to be there. So,
Thank you.
and you guys are doing great stuff over there.
We
so
appreciate
to
it.
you and the
Thank you.
team, thanks for watching and thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again for coming on and giving us a little education on how waste services, biomedical waste services are managed. So thank you so much. Well, that's all for this episode of The Diligent Leader. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Holly Basta.
And I'm Alex Fakeri.
I'm Michael Graham.
And we want to thank you very much. And thanks for Danielle Fields for joining us today
Thank
and
you.
catching this episode of The Diligent Leader. Take care.